Sach, how's it going, bro?
You know, Terrence, I think the White House listens to our show.
You think the White House listens to our show?
Yeah, like the place where the president lives, lots of important people, diplomats and stuff. So, Jim Acosta, the CNN White House beat reporter.
Okay.
He tweets out a late-night picture from the correspondence room, the press conference room where, like, they listen to people lie at them.
Right.
And so he's tweeting a picture, and in the background, a TV is on. But what's on that TV? New Japan's G1 tournament. Now, here's where the conspiracy sets in.
Right.
It was Kota Ibushi versus Tetsuya Naito.
Uh-huh.
Naito, the leader of Los Ingobernables. Uh-huh. So I think the president is focused on them. I think he's got a plan for Los Ingobernables winning the gold.
You think that's what his plan is?
Yeah. You know? We're gonna get right into it. Look. Heart blacker than my socks. The fan waiting for that drop. I haven't written in a week. Been double tapping like a creep. Saw colors with my last girl. With my new chick, I see the world. You know? Yeah, she got me plotting. Maybe I should put a baby in a chick. Fuck happiness. I just like I'm pretty and I'm thick. Girl, you know that I'm a Mac with it. Shouldn't have to say it twice. You don't have to love me. You just gotta act right. Yeah.
Welcome back to Talkin Bout Wrestling. This is a show for wrestling fans, by wrestling fans. I'm your host, TW Talkin Bout. And today, we're going to talk about some wrestling. That's why we're here, right? But before we get into all the good, fun wrestling talk that we're going to do tonight, do me a favor. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. If you're listening on SoundCloud or YouTube or iTunes, however you might be consuming this show, go ahead and leave me a comment too. Let me know what you think of the show. Leave me a rating if you're on iTunes. 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, 5 stars, definitely. And share the show with a friend. Let's bring more fans into the conversation so we can talk about this all together. Obviously, I got Sach in the house. We're gonna do our thing. Talk about yes, please, no, please, 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 the game you guys love. Thank you again to Thomas Legend for letting us use his song Act Right as the opening to our show. Definitely is a nice little change from the generic music I was using to open the show before we did that. Let's see what's going on big in the wrestling world that's really kind of hitting right now. I mean, the John Cena Roman Reigns match was a huge thing. You're gonna hear me and Sach talk more about that. The Braun Strowman Brock Lesnar match, that was a little bit of a disappointment, to be honest. I honestly have to go watch it in full so I can really let you guys know what I think. But I was just disappointed in how short it was and the way it ended. I just didn't think they really did justice to the buildup, which was Brock absolutely getting dominated by Braun Strowman every week on Monday Night Raw. And then to have, the match kind of end the way it did, is a little bit anticlimactic. In the world of Impact Wrestling, I think they're trying to, do some big things. And the shows have been solid. I mean, to these guys' credit, you can't say that the shows have been bad. Some of the ideas I may not have been completely in love with. Like, I didn't love the idea of doing Jeremy Borash and Josh Matthews having a match between those guys. But you know what? If you look back at that Slammiversary show, that was one of the better segments. It was really, really good. And so, sometimes you just got to give the guys credit and let it play out and see exactly, what they're trying to accomplish. And more often than not, it has been entertaining. So they do deserve credit for that. Whether or not they can get over the hump and get some people to just kind of look at them with an objective eye, who knows? But I like some of the things they're doing. They're kind of leaning towards more of a Canadian base. And I'm okay with that, right? Because we've been watching the show originate from the Impact Zone with the exception of, I think, 2010 when they went on tour, we've been watching this show come from the Impact Zone, pretty much nonstop, and it feels a little stale. Anytime they can get in front of a fresh crowd, get in front of a paying audience, it always makes the shows so much better. So I'm very much in favor of them doing Bound for Glory out of a venue in Ottawa where they have a paying audience. And, that's just something I'm definitely looking forward to seeing. So that's, I can talk a little bit more about that later. But, I think I mentioned this last week. The fact that they're actually going on the road and going to have paying customers, and it'll probably be the same or more people that they get in the Impact Zone, that right there is a win. So, I don't know the full logistics of it as far as, what they pay for, what they'll pay to light the building and, catering and other necessary elements that go into production. I don't know what they pay for those things, but it just seems like, they still have to, doing the show at the place they're doing it in Ottawa versus doing it at the Impact Zone. It seems like all the same things go into producing the show, with the exception of the fact that you're actually getting a live gate. And I also heard that the floor seats for Bound for Glory are already sold out. So, things might be trending in the right direction for those guys. I just think the best thing they can do is put out some shows where the audience is full of fans and they're into the show and they're enjoying what the characters are doing. I think that's just the best thing they could possibly do. So as long as they're not bleeding money, taking the show out of the Impact Zone is the 100% right thing to do, in my opinion. All right. So those are just a couple of quick thoughts from the world of wrestling this week. And now let's bring in Sach and play America's favorite game. Yes, please. No, please. Please, please. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with Sach. Sach, how's it going, man?
Boy, we had a packed week. It was just every night was just one event after another.
Seriously. And we're not even talking about wrestling yet. I mean, this has been a crazy week. But listen, guys, I'm going to keep it all the way real with you. Me and Sach are both in a crunch for time today. So we are going to give you our pleases. We're going to hit on everything. But we're going to go in a little less detail today than we normally would, all right? But definitely enjoy the show and still let us know what you think. But anyway, back to it. Sach, but before we get into our pleases, what would you say, what was your top takeaway from the week in WWE?
So, this is going to sound weird. I thought the undercard of No Mercy was much better than the two main events. And that's not saying Cena versus Roman was bad, because I know the story they were trying to tell. I thought it was a poetic, I do not think that this is the end of John Cena's career, but they presented it like it was.
They definitely did.
And if he ends with the thank you Cena and the wild cheers after a decade of boos, I thought that's the perfect going away present for him.
Yeah.
Brock versus Braun, I guess, is what it is. My favorite match coming out of No Mercy was the tag team match. And I'm not even going to rave about the Shield today. Okay. I want to talk about how tough Cesaro has to be. He went face first into the turnbuckle, and the turnbuckle didn't knock his teeth out. It didn't chip his teeth. It kicked his teeth up into his gum bone. His teeth were jammed up into his bone. I cannot imagine. Terrence, you know me. You know my capacity for pain. If that were me, I'd be rolling on the floor making ow noises for the next few minutes. I'd have to take off work for the next month. Major props to Cesaro on that spot.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is pretty crazy, man. That definitely required surgery to get those out. That's, oh God, woo, woo. Oh, it's terrible. Oh man. For me, I didn't like the ending to Braun and Brock. You've had Braun Strowman dominating Brock Lesnar for weeks now. And, Brock just beats him clean with the F5. I don't know. To me, that story doesn't really jive. Maybe I got to go back and watch that match a little more closely to see if there was a storytelling element that maybe I didn't fully grasp the first time. But I don't know. I just thought the way that Braun Strowman dominated Brock on TV, it would have to been something epic for Brock to finally get over beating him.
Yeah, I definitely feel like if you're going to beat Braun after one F5, the right story should have been like, he's just been worn down after, like, give him the longest match of his career, and then he gets worn down. Mm-hmm. That's the story you could tell of. That's how, like, that story would have been, this is how you beat Braun Strowman. You wear him out. Losing after, 8 minutes?
It's crazy.
I felt like it didn't do Braun enough justice.
I think I 100% agree with you. That would have been a great way to tell that story, because it would have been like, okay, Brock is a monster as well, but he's also, another level of athlete that he can, do the long match that just exhausts Braun Strowman, and that's just water that was too deep for him. That would have been a good way to tell that story. But instead, I don't know. I think what they were going for was something similar to what we got with Brock and Goldberg at WrestleMania, which was a wham bam thank you ma'am, but it was perfect the way it played out. So I think that's what they were going for, but I don't know, I just didn't feel the same way about it.
Okay. Yeah, and Brock winning a long match could have also been part 2 of the story, because he won a short, quick one against Samoa Joe. If he wins a long one against Braun Strowman, you're setting up the story of he can beat you quick. He can go long. Uh-huh. What more does it take to beat this beast?
Right. And so the only thing that kind of worries me about this is, like, I feel like between Brock and Roman, they're running through all potential opponents on their way to meeting each other. And on one hand, I feel like that's what you should do, but I also feel like they're running through potential great matches. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like they're just kind of just plowing through everybody. And so, I'm curious. I said last week that I thought Finn Balor was going to win the Royal Rumble and, possibly challenge Braun Strowman for the title. But Finn Balor announced this week on Raw that he was going to be going after the Universal Championship. And so, I'm interested to see how that's going to play out. He'll probably run into a roadblock of some kind, possibly a big dog.
Ooh.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Finn versus Roman at Survivor Series? Finn versus... Well, we don't know when Brock's coming back, but we'll get back to that later in the show. Finn versus Brock at the Royal Rumble? Finn versus...
I feel like you got to do a big Royal Rumble match. You got to.
Yeah. Last year, we had KO versus Roman, the end of a great feud. Right. And then we had John Cena versus AJ Styles stealing the show. Right.
So, I'm very interested to see, like, where they go from here. All right, let's get to it. Sach, what did you see from WWE this week that you love? What did you see in the world of WWE that has you saying, yes, please?
Terrence, for all of you who follow me on Twitter, you've seen my thoughts on this. Neville and Enzo, the double turn they pulled off on Raw is the best story WWE has going on right now. So, a couple things from the Enzo storyline. He won the championship at No Mercy in cheating ways. Comes out on Monday in the main event of Raw and runs down the rest of the roster, turns the whole roster against him, and then they take their turns hitting their finishers one by one on him. So... WWE is really good when they know what the crowd really thinks about people. And so this year, remember last year, they knew what the crowd thought of Miz, and so they gave him that promo against Debray. They know what the crowd thinks of Enzo, and so they have him actually play up the things that people hate about him. Okay. That it feels like he's the worst wrestler on the roster, but he's still very highly pushed. It feels like he has no respect for, air quotes, the business, but is still very highly pushed. And they have to have Enzo come out and throw all those things in the faces of the other cruiserweights. Right. Was a perfect heel touch. And then they turned Neville face. Not so much as turning him face, but putting him into a position that the crowd agrees with him. Right. And agrees with him a lot. A few interesting wrinkles from that storyline, from that segment. When Mustafa Ali was going to hit the inverted 450 on Enzo, and Drew Gulak, whose gimmick is no high-flying moves, goes up and tries to stop him. So the other cruiserweights have to convince the crowd to let him do it. Right. Which was a great spot that fit both of their characters. Number 2, Enzo had a no-contact contract in his hand,
Right.
which means nobody on 205 Live is eligible to challenge him for the title, which gives us 2 possibilities. Neville can now beat him clean and without winning the title and move on to Raw.
True.
And number 2, you could debut somebody like a Hideo Itami or another cruiserweight, or I don't know if you want to get Kalisto from SmackDown, but you could debut somebody new into the division.
Or John Jones.
Or John Jones. Or even Xavier Woods when his leg heals. You could debut somebody new into the division and have them challenge Enzo. But this week, WWE gets major props for how they've harnessed the real-life heat and turned it into story heat for Enzo Amore.
I agree with you so much on that, man. I think you hit the nail on the head. WWE is really good at finding what the buzz is and using it. It's a shame they don't do that more often. The problem is, though, I think sometimes they're wrong with that. So look at it like this, right? There is a lot of scuttlebutt going around the interwebs that people don't like Enzo, right? People don't like Enzo backstage. WWE's not a big fan of him. Yada, 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 yada. But I'll tell you the same thing I told people when it was leading up to WrestleMania Play Button. And and on the way up to that show, Seth Rollins was opening and closing Monday Night Raw every week. So people can think what they want, but the most valuable commodity that they have to offer is TV time. And they gave Enzo the primetime main event slot. Now, I think that's twofold. One is they're smart enough to realize that people don't want to stay up till 11:15 and watch garbage. So they've started putting the real main event on around 10 o'clock. And just doing something to fill after that. But for those, the truly hardcore fans who do stay up and watch to the end, that main event slot is still, that's still a valuable time slot. And so if they're putting Enzo in that slot, they do trust him to entertain in some way. And so believe what you see and not what you hear. Enzo is not in the WWE doghouse. He's the centerpiece now of a show that's failing. They've taken him and put him as a centerpiece of a show that's failing. And then I also heard one of the commenters mention that the 205 Live views have gone up by something like 200%. The 205 Live views on YouTube, the clips of 205 Live, have gone up by some ridiculous percentage since Enzo was moved to that show. So the numbers say that people are interested in Enzo Amore on 205 Live. And so, again, people can believe what they read, but believe what you see and not what you hear.
How you doing?
There you go. All right, so my yes please this week is, speaking of Twitter, you know what we did on Twitter, Sach? You know what we did on Twitter? We made a dream match happen. We made a first time ever match happen.
I am so glad you didn't bring up my nudie scandal.
No, I didn't even know about that, but geez, we might have to edit that one out, but it's okay. Jeez, Sach, you're disgusting. I bet you're all hairy and stuff. Anyway, oh gosh, I gotta get that out of my mind now. Okay, anyway, so if you guys remember, a few weeks ago on this show, Sach mentioned the possibility of the Usos and the New Day culminating their feud inside Hell in a Cell, which would be the first ever tag team Hell in a Cell. And I thought that was such an amazing idea that I made sure to mention it every week after that on the show. And then finally, I believe it was a week or 2 weeks ago, I tweeted to Triple H, to the New Day, and to the Usos, let's do a tag team Hell in a Cell. Let's make it happen. Of course they didn't reply to my tweet, but out of nowhere, they announced that the Usos and New Day will be settling their feud inside the first ever tag team Hell in a Cell match.
Hell in a Cell.
That's right. It's a cell inside the Uso Penitentiary, if you didn't know. And so, I mean, I'm looking forward to this, man. I mean, I think this is going to be a great match. The Usos and the New Day have consistently delivered with their matches. I can't think of a time recently when the Usos and New Day have had a match and it wasn't the best match on the show. And so I think, you throw in the Hell in a Cell element there, all of these guys, they all do high-flying spots. I think the possibilities are endless, man. I think this is going to be a great match. But really, I'm just excited to know that people over at the E really do pay attention to what we got going on over here at Talking About Wrestling. How about that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So, I'm souped off that, and I think that match is going to be great. But it can't all be roses. So, Sach, tell me, what did you see in the world of WWE this week that you didn't like? What has you saying no, please?
So this is a bit of a mixed bag for me because I like the storyline. I just didn't like what happened on Raw.
Okay.
I'm talking about Roman versus Miz. Mm-hmm. Roman and Miz have a match on Raw. Mm-hmm. Right after a Talking Smack segment, right after Roman beats Cena at No Mercy. And Roman, throughout the course of the match, Roman beats Miz clean, which in a nutshell sounds like it should make sense because Roman's treated higher than Miz. But here's why I didn't like it.
Okay.
If you beat somebody clean on the first night of your feud, then you have to come up with justifiable reasons why the other guy deserves a second chance.
That's true.
And this sort of they tried to help redeem this by what happened after the match. You had Miz in the Miztourage beating down Roman and doing the Shield taunt right above him.
Right.
Do I think it's going to lead to a three-man Shield reunion? I don't know. Maybe for one night, only in a six-man tag. Maybe they send that match to Starrcade for a six-man tag. But I can't see Roman getting back together with the Shield, and that's what the crowd wants when you're teasing. When you have Miz teasing all the Shield stuff, it's because you're leading the crowd to want a Shield reunion. I don't think that's going to happen. Even though I did like the beatdown, and I did like making the Miztourage actually look like a threat instead of Miz and two beatable henchmen. So I did like that, but I thought this was a mixed bag to kick off the storyline, and I want to see where they're taking this because I think Ambrose and Rollins are tied up in other stuff.
I think what you mentioned is very smart, and now that you mention it, Sach, I think that's exactly where they're going. Think about it like this. You have roughly, 6 weeks until Survivor Series, something like that. It's almost October now, right? Ooh. It's almost October, and so so that gives you 4 weeks to do Roman and Miz, right? And then you could just add somebody else in there. You add in Strowman or add in some random Bray Wyatt or something like that, and then you have Roman and Dean and Seth and like Finn Balor and one more good guy. You know what I'm saying? Matt Hardy, something like that, right? And there's your Survivor Series main event.
Ooh. See?
So, it's very doable. I think you actually, the fact that they did the Shield pose at the end, I think that was actually foreshadowing. I think that was pretty good, man. I don't even think you were thinking that, but, but that was still pretty good. So, I saw something very interesting online. Max Landis, who did the famous Wrestling Isn't Wrestling video, he did one of those through tweets about The Miz. And the concept pretty much was that we, the fans, have watched The Miz come up. Right, like we've really watched him like earn his whole his everything he has, like from his position in the company to his wife, you know what I mean? Like the whole thing, like we've really watched this whole thing play out. And so he was saying that the audience has an affection for Miz that it's like they kind of see him as like the underdog. Now me, I don't necessarily like look at Miz as the underdog. I look at Miz more as like, just an annoying guy. But his character has taken a turn, I would say, over the course of the last maybe year or so, where he is more of like a believable bad guy. Up until then, he was just like an annoying, like turd type of dude. But I feel like now he's more of I guess like a legit bad guy. And I just think it's very interesting because, like, I was actually telling my wife yesterday, the thing that made me want to get into television production is I saw before the Miz and John Cena WrestleMania main event, the video package that they did for the Miz leading up to that match. That just it literally changed my life because like it just. The way they were able to capture his whole story, you know what I mean? And like you could see it from the time when he's in the room watching the TV and you see him watching Hulk Hogan, you see him watching Ric Flair, and so they're telling you the story that this guy watched the stars of the 80s, and then you see him on The Real World, and you see him, they're telling you this guy, he took what he saw and he had this ambition to do it. And even though people looked at him funny, he still had the ambition to do it. And he tried out for Tough Enough, and he eventually made that. And he worked his way up doing crappy positions on the WWE roster until he, won the Money in the Bank briefcase, got the big spot, and it was off to the races. And I just remember watching that video package, and then they set it to Hate Me Now by Nas, and it was just a perfect mesh of like all my senses, you know what I mean? Like my visual and hearing senses, and it just told a perfect story. And when I saw the article that Landis did about The Miz, it kind of brought me back to that, and it reminded me that, there is something about having watched The Miz's journey that does make you root for him a little bit. I mean, I don't really root for him because I just from everything that I see as The Miz, like he just really strikes me as a very superficial dude, and just like as a human, I'm just not into that kind of person. But from a career standpoint, you like to see somebody work their way up and achieve their goals, and I do feel like we've gotten a chance to do that with The Miz. So The Miz versus Roman is actually the great parallel, and here's where it gets really interesting. The Miz versus Roman is the parallel. Gosh, what's the word I'm looking for when it's two completely opposite things?
Counterpoints?
Maybe. So let's say they're the great counterpoints. You got one guy who was the chosen one from the day he stepped foot in the company, right? That's Roman. And then you got one guy who really has had to scratch and claw his way up, And the audience knows that. That's why the audience, like if you notice, when Miz starts going on his rants, he gets a lot of cheers from the audience. And Roman gets booed mercilessly almost no matter what. So I do think The Miz versus Roman presents a very interesting dynamic of who the fans really like versus, who the company wants the fans to like.
Yeah, it's like Miz's heel underdog shticks told over, an 8-9 year span is one of WWE's accidental success stories.
100%.
Because his character never really changed. His character never really changed. The biggest differences were the ways that he's expressed himself. Mm-hmm. And pairing the heel underdog.
That's very much like Triple H, which brings me back to the original. Yep.
By the way, if you guys haven't, a shout out to Max Landis. If you guys haven't seen Wrestling Isn't Wrestling, it'll be the second best 23 minutes of your day right after listening to us.
All right, so let's move along here. All right, so let's see. That was your no please. So my no please this week was coming from SmackDown Live, and I didn't like the way that the Hype Bros versus Usos match kind of played out. And it's not so much that I didn't like the way the match played out. It's that the overall story of the Hype Bros, I'm just not sure what's going on. Like, they were teasing a Hype Bros breakup for a long time. Then they were off TV. Then they came back and they teased it a little more. Then they were off TV and they came back. And then they did the thing last week where, Mojo and Zach kind of have a little powwow backstage. And it seemed like they both agreed that, hey, we're going to start doing our own thing. We're going to be bad guys if we have to. And then this week, you have Zach distracting Mojo to cause him to lose the match. And I'm just like, dude, figure out what you're doing with the Hype Bros. Is it going to be Zach turning on Mojo? Is it going to be Mojo turning on Zach? Are they both going to be bad guys? Figure out what you're doing. So right now, to me, this Hype Bros story is very choppy, very shoddy. And so you get my no, please.
You didn't get unhyped. You stayed unhyped.
That's true. That's true.
I agree in a way because they're teasing a few things, and if I had the three options in front of me, I prefer the Hype Brothers turning heel because the New Day, whether they win the titles or not, they need a heel feud afterward.
True.
And SmackDown's looking like a two-team division right now.
That's true.
With, Breezango are off doing their own thing. I'd like to think they'd be the next face feud for the Usos, but SmackDown is kind of lacking on the team thing.
Very much.
A heel Hype Brothers, or even a competent Hype Brothers, could help the division after New Day versus Usos is over.
Either one of those would be a complete evolution of their tag team. All right, so getting to the end here. We heard what you liked, we heard what you didn't like, but what are you looking forward to see, Sach? What have you seen so far from WWE this week that's make you say, please, please, show me this?
Please, please bring back Brock.
Oh.
All right. So after WrestleMania, we went through like a 2-ish month time where we had no sign of our champion.
True.
On the flagship show. But Brock returned, had a super hot feud with Samoa Joe, another hot feud with Roman, Strowman, and Joe, and then another hot feud with Braun Strowman. When Brock's back, when Brock's back and it feels like the title will be defended at the end of the month, it feels like Raw has more of a central direction, more of a purpose. And, we've been through Brock storylines before. We know he's taking a vacation until the Royal Rumble. What does Raw do from here? Braun needs quality opponents, and he can't go back to Roman. Joe's out hurt. Raw needs some sort of direction at the top. Also, you were totally right about Cena's long hair. He went back to go film a movie. So, Mr. Cena is probably gone. Yep. Raw needs some more star power at the top, and it needs some more direction for the guys like Braun, for Finn, for Bray Wyatt, for the guys have something to fight for, and without a championship, it feels like we're just fighting for something arbitrary.
That's very true. Well, actually, I do think there's a little bit of a counterpoint here. I think what makes it interesting is this really forces Raw to build up a contender, right? So it's like if your champion is not on TV every week, then you're not really tempted to want to see the champion fight or put the champion in danger. So that makes Brock more of a special attraction whenever you see him. And it forces you to really build up the contender. Like, for example, if they took Braun and put him right in a title match right away, then it would have been like, okay, we already saw Braun go to the top and fail. Now he's done. But because, they've spent all this time investing in teaching you that Braun is a big deal, when he got a chance to go up against Lesnar, it felt like a big deal. So one positive, I think, to not having Brock on TV is it forced them to really build up the contender before they have to actually go against Brock. So I think that can actually be a little bit of a positive. All right, so here is my please, please for this week. Okay, now, I'm not the wrestling police, okay? Never have been, never will be. But SmackDown Live is really wasting AJ Styles. And it's tough to say that when he has the United States title. But he's doing this feud where He's dancing around a match against Baron Corbin that's not quite happening, and we're also not seeing Baron Corbin wrestle. So they're not really building up Baron Corbin. You know, like they're teasing a match between AJ and Baron Corbin, but it's not happening, and we're also not seeing Baron Corbin wrestle. So I don't know if Baron Corbin's hurt or whatever, but in the meantime, they got AJ Styles carrying the U.S. title. So here we go. WWE, please bring back the matches in the U.S. Open Challenge. The U.S. Open Challenge is a blank check to just fill TV time with a great match. Because the story being told is that this is the title, and what we do for this title is we have a great match. When they originally did that with John Cena, he was having some phenomenal matches, man. But now they have a phenomenal U.S. champion, and they're not having these matches. They're instead dancing around, some stupid story between Ty Dillinger and Baron Corbin, and I can't lie to you, nobody wants to see either of those people. After what they did to Baron Corbin with losing the Money in the Bank and then getting buried by Cena at SummerSlam, I'm sorry. Corbin's got to work his way back up in the fans' eyes. So, WWE, you have the green light to have AJ Styles go out and just have great match after great match after great match against anybody you want to. Take the restraints off and just let these guys go out there and have great matches. That's what you let Cena do. Trust AJ. He's a vet. He's wrestled around the world. He knows how to go out and have a great match. So, WWE, please bring the matches back to the U.S. Open Challenge.
I mean, yeah, when AJ's had those little showcase matches on SmackDown against the undercard guys like Ty Dillinger and Chad Gable, those have been what's the right word? Those should be treated as springboards for these undercard guys to show off what they can do against a main eventer and then get something from it. Now WWE has followed a little bit with Ty Dillinger, like having him and Corbin be like messing around with each other for the past few weeks. However, it feels like Dillinger and Corbin should be feuding with each other and not necessarily feuding with AJ.
Right.
AJ is a little bit lost since Kevin Owens is off feuding with Shane and putting chairs around people's necks. So AJ needs a top line feud. And Terrence, you want to know what I want from SmackDown after Hell in a Cell?
A refund.
Well, I want AJ to get back into the title picture.
But he has a title.
Well, the other title, the gender title.
Yeah. Oh, so who comes out of Hell in a Cell with the world title?
A bit early for our predictions, but I'm going to say.
Oh, that's right. It's too early for the predictions. All right. So right now, we'll see. We'll see how we're feeling coming out of Hell in a Cell. All right, Sach. So what else in the world of wrestling's been kind of burning you this week?
It feels kind of funny that every major company had a pay-per-view or their major TV special this week. Ring of Honor had Death Before Dishonor. New Japan had Destruction in Kobe. No, not that Kobe. WWE had No Mercy. Lucha Underground had Ultima Lucha. And Impact is having Victory Road with Eli Drake versus Johnny Impact. So it's a lot of wrestling. And for the non-WWE stuff, I want to shout out two things that you guys should watch. Or I want to shout out three things that you guys should watch. It was Kenny King versus Kushida at Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor. Bachelorette star Kenny King got a title shot and won the Ring of Honor television title. The crowd celebrates, and he has a sweet moment celebrating with his daughter in the ring. The crowd celebrates by throwing roses in the ring as a nod to his bachelor
That was nice.
stint. From New Japan Destruction in Kobe, I want to recommend Kenny Omega versus Juice Robinson. The story they told was the young guy, Juice Robinson, came in and did his homework. He was countering all of Kenny's moves.
Okay.
And he was countering everything, not even letting him hit his finisher because he was slipping out of it. And the story was that he came in prepared, but he just couldn't last 25 minutes with the champion, and this made them both look like stars to me. And from Ultima Lucha, you guys, if you go on Twitter and look at the GIF of the Dante Fox fall.
Okay.
Dante Fox versus Killshot.
Okay.
They were brawling at the top of the arena. It looks like he's about to throw Killshot off. Killshot smacks him with a bottle, breaks it over his head, and then he falls off the top of whatever you call the arena,
Right.
through like 3 glass tables.
Wow.
That is one of those moments where I just wanted to yell out a few expletives after I saw that. That is the most insane, well, let's face it, unsafe, but the most insane spot I've seen in months. So guys, go check out that fall.
That's crazy. That does sound pretty good. I'm definitely interested to see that. I want to ask you an Impact question really quickly. I may have brought this up last week, but I just wanted to get your thoughts on it. How many people do you think Full Sail holds for NXT?
Ooh, good question. Maybe 400, because it doesn't look that big.
Right, and so I think like also when you watch Impact, how many people do you think are in there for the tapings?
It's a bit tricky with the camera angles, but I'd say maybe 1,000.
Really? Hell no.
Not that much?
No chance. But I think think about it. It's about the same as Full Sail. I mean, like, I think, like, you never see the hard camera side of Full Sail, so I'd be interested. By the way, speaking of the hard camera side, did you see those pictures of SmackDown on the hard camera side?
Oh, boy.
Holy crap, dude.
They didn't get hyped. They stayed away.
Yo, seriously, man. I mean, like, the thing is, like, people make so much fun because that's exactly what Impact looks like on the hard camera side. But I mean, good God, man, like that's not good.
You know what I always thought was funny is that the guys are talking to the side where nobody is sitting.
Right, yeah. Yo, so that is pretty crazy. The thing I was gonna say is, I heard so many people like making fun of Impact for saying that for the venue that they're playing Bound for Glory for in Ottawa, that they're hoping to draw 500 fans. And my thing was like this. I said, okay, they probably, in another life, I used to set up audiences for TV shows, okay? So I can look at a group of chairs and give you a rough idea of how many chairs are in that section, okay? Yeah. So just like you said, for NXT and Full Sail, there's about 400, 500, maybe 6 max because we can't see the hard camera side. Let's say if there are fans in there, there's about 600 on the including the hard camera side. For Impact, it's about 300-400 people. So if they're talking about having 500 paid fans for Auto for Bound for Glory, I'm like, that's a win, because the people at the Impact Zone, they get those tickets for free. So you're going from having 300 to 400 free fans to 500 paid fans. That's a win.
Cash money. But I'm glad you brought up Bound for Glory because we need to give our listeners the answer to last week's trivia question. So last week's trivia question, with AJ Styles presumably appearing at Starrcade, he will be the 4th person, 3 if you count a tag team as a person, but okay, he will be the 4th person to have appeared at Wrestle Kingdom, WrestleMania, Bound for Glory, and Starrcade.
Okay.
The other 3 are the Steiner brothers and Kevin Nash.
Swag.
But I want to shout out 2 other possibilities. If Kurt Angle gets cleared to wrestle, or if Jeff Hardy comes back from injury and they both wrestle at Starrcade, they will also join the list of guys to appear at Wrestle Kingdom, WrestleMania, Starrcade, and Bound for Glory.
That's pretty dope, man. That's pretty dope. My thought was going to be, Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. That's what I thought it was going to be.
Oh, shoot. I'm guessing... because Hogan was in New Japan before they had the Wrestle Kingdom name.
Oh, got it.
And... Rick Rude could have been a possibility, but he never appeared at Bound for Glory.
Because he died.
Before. It was around.
All right, Sach, tell people where they can find you on social.
You can find me with all the trivia questions on Twitter at SachAndDaveC.
All right, people, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Ladies and gentlemen,
This week in Impact was one where we're trying to get back to just watching the show, but all the negative news that came out over the past couple of weeks has kind of deterred, it killed a lot of the momentum that had been built up. And for all of his flaws, one thing you gotta say about Jeff Jarrett is that he kept the machine rolling in terms of positive news coming out, things that are, looking good for Anthem, Impact, whatever, right? And since he's been absent, it has been noticeable the lack of positive news that has been coming out surrounding this promotion. So we're just kind of left waiting to watch the show, which is, by the way, what normal fans would do. But because you don't have these little releases coming out here, releases coming out there, little news articles being created here and there, you're just left with whatever, the quote unquote dirt sheets want to put out, which, let's be honest, is often not favorable for Impact Wrestling. And then you're left to watch the show, right? And to their credit, the shows have been good. They just need to do more of creating that positive vibe surrounding the promotion. Because, I said it earlier, I think that going to Ottawa for Bound for Glory and for the next set of TV tapings, I really think that's a good idea, because at least they're making some money, whereas in Orlando, all those tickets were free. So I think that's actually a good idea. Let's just hope that they actually get people out there to watch the show and be engaged and come out and really put a good amount of energy into those shows. So we'll see how that plays out, but I'm very, very interested. Now, this week, my yes please for what we saw in Impact Wrestling goes to the Eli Drake Johnny Impact main event. Now, I was very curious as to, why they would give away this match in full when I was expecting this to be the main event for Bound for Glory. Maybe this won't be the main event for Bound for Glory, but this was a full match. This match was, I think, over 20 minutes long, and it was a good match. Eli Drake works a different style from Johnny Impact. Johnny Impact has, he incorporates a lot of that parkour stuff into his matches, and it really makes him a unique wrestler than anybody else who you see around, because he just does little things that would be simple. Like, instead of climbing through the ropes, he'll back roll through the second rope to get outside and then hop over the top. And those are the things you just don't see from your average wrestler. And so with Eli Drake working more of, a slow down style, doing choke holds and chin holds and arm bars and all that stuff, it really highlights the contrast between the two. And I thought that actually made for a really good match. So I enjoyed that. So Eli Drake and Johnny Impact, you guys get my yes, please. Another thing that I really loved about that, by the way, was after the match was over, Eli Drake cut a great heel promo on Johnny Impact, holding the title in his face, saying this is as close as you're ever going to get to it. That's really good stuff, man. So I like that. Eli Drake's really coming off like a big deal, and he's coming off like a big heel at the same time. So one more time, Eli Drake and Johnny Impact, you guys got my yes please for the week. Now, my no please for the week goes to OVE winning the tag team championships. These guys have had, I think, all of 2 or maybe 3 matches on TV, and again, all those matches haven't even looked great. And then they won the tag team titles off of LAX, and I just I don't love that, because LAX has been so dominant, right? LAX has been so dominant that whoever beat LAX, it should be a really big deal. And the way this was done, it wasn't a big deal, because there wasn't a lot of really good build to get you excited for what OVE was going to do. And the finish of the match was kind of clunky. It just could have been done better. So I'm not really interested in what's going to happen with OVE one way or the other. To be honest with you, I'd be more interested in seeing them lose, just because I don't feel like they have kind of really earned that type of spot. And so I'm interested to see, where this goes, but not really, right? So that's never a good thing. You should want to see more and more. But what I do like about what happened here is LAX lost the titles, and then they ended up coming back later in the show and just wreaking havoc all over the Impact Zone. And so it makes sense when someone loses and they're angry and they lash out. So I like when you keep that sensible element into the show. So that was actually a good thing. But as far as OVE being the tag team champions, you get my no please. And as far as what I'm looking forward to, my please goes to the Bobby Lashley American Top Team story. Now, I've heard some scuttlebutt that this was supposed to be leading to some sort of match involving Bobby Lashley and Dan Lambert and possibly Jeff Jarrett. And I don't want to see Jeff Jarrett in the ring. I got no interest in seeing that. I really have no interest in seeing Jeff Jarrett in the ring. So Bobby Lashley, being the great talent that he is, he still needs something great to do. So I'm saying, please ride this story out, but find a way to, keep Lashley hot, right? Find a way to keep Lashley in some sort of storyline that people actually want to see. So those are my thoughts on Impact this week. Hopefully, some more good positive news comes out. And, I heard that, the tickets are selling well for Bound for Glory. And so I hope they actually get a better than expected crowd. And, let's just see where this thing goes. All right, guys, we got another show in the books. And, I thank you guys all so much for tuning in. Wrestling is a fun topic, especially with all of the, feel bad things that are popping up in our news right now. All of the reasons that we have to argue and fight and all this other stuff. Wrestling is a TV show that is about fake fighting. And it's about, giving in to some of the lowest common denominators that we have, but it's all enjoyable. It brings people back to their childhood in a lot of ways, and ultimately, it's just good, mindless entertainment, and that's what we need sometimes. So in whoever might out there be listening to this, anytime you get a chance to listen to someone who might have a different point of view than you, take advantage of that, because so much of our life is spent surrounded by people who we want to be surrounded by. And a lot of times we want to be surrounded by people because they have similar experiences and thoughts and values as us. And it never hurts to learn a little bit about people who are not like you, people who are from different backgrounds from you, people who have, different religions, different sexual orientations, different, they come from different, neighborhoods, different type of families, all this other stuff. So there's no harm in growing. So, let's all take this opportunity, especially now at a time when you got a lot of people, who are not shy about sharing their opinions, even though those opinions are not very well educated, right? So, spread love in the world, spread understanding in the world, and that's just always a good place to be. All right, that's our show for this week. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, you can find me on Twitter at TW Talkin Bout. If you listen to this on SoundCloud, please share it with a friend. Tell a friend to tell a friend. That's how we're going to grow the audience. Make sure you like, rate, comment, subscribe, and pass it along. Thank you guys again. I love you, and we'll see you next week.
My aunt said I got the cutting edge, so I guess it's only right I take a decade of decadence, 4 more years, then it's Kanye West for president. You know that I'm a man with it. I shouldn't have to say it twice. You don't have to love me. You just gotta act right. Yeah. I don't fall in